welcome everybody today. We're here with District Attorney Tom Quinn and our Police Chief Joe Cordeiro and others who are part of a larger task force to address a particular facet of the opioid problem in our city, and we'll tell you about it. But just first, just by way of context, we've been, like many other American cities, especially in the Northeast and in the Mississippi River Valley, dealing with the opioid problem for some time now, and we've made progress in the last couple of years with a decided drop in overdoses, a roughly 20% drop in overdoses, but and fatal overdoses, excuse me. But we know that we are still have a major problem on our hands, and like with everything else that we do, as much as we attempt to partner with the state and the federal government, where we need to take things into our own hands from time to time. We know that at the local level, the work of dealing with public safety is the first order of business, and that's especially true when it comes to opioid addiction and all the other things that are associated with it, ranging from petty crime to panhandling, to, more importantly, broken families, and we see it play out in many facets of the life of the city, and in schools and other walks of life. And we in New Bedford, with the great work of the DA's office, have done a really good job at interdicting the flow of opioids into the city. But we've also done a good job working with our partners at Seven Hills and others. In making sure that folks who need treatment get into it. We've done a great job also in making sure that we're incorporating age-appropriate instruction in our schools so that students can understand and appreciate the perils of opioid use. All these things matter. But we're here today really to talk about one particular initiative that we think will also help. Again, won't solve the matter all by itself. It's not a silver bullet, but we do know that when we pull out all the stops, we stand the best chance of making sure that folks who are addicted get their lives back on track. So we're here today to announce what is called the LEAD program. It's an acronym. It stands for the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. And it is a joint effort, again, with the District Attorney's Office, as well as Seven Hills Behavioral Health, and Connie Mimosa from Seven Hills is here. Where's Connie? Where'd Connie go? Right next to me. As well as David Lima from the Interchurch Council, as I said, and as well as the DA's office. And I'll have Tom Quinn come on up and say his remarks about the program. But what the gist of it is that it's a pretrial diversion program for low-level drug offenders. We know that we have a cohort of folks in our adult population, users who continue to use despite having been arrested, despite having been in the criminal justice system at some point, and often multiple points. So what this program in effect does is that instead of processing them through the criminal justice system, we get them into services as quickly as possible, because oftentimes at that point of arrest is an opportune moment to deal with addiction, when that particular person might be more open to suggestion, might be open to receiving help. And so we want to seize that opportunity to get them going in the right direction. So this is a program that's been tried in other places around the country with some success as we did our research on it. In particular, we looked at places like Albany and Seattle that have seen some pretty good results along the way. So we're looking forward to the work ahead. And again, this is one facet of our overall effort in combating opioids and helping our residents get on track. And and we couldn't do it without the support and the active participation of DA Tom Quinn's office. Obviously, he is where the rubber hits the road when it comes to the criminal justice system in Bristol County, and we have a great partner in Tom in many respects of public safety, but this one in particular, he knows as well as anybody that locking people up and throwing away the key is not a complete solution to public safety, that we have to get at it in smart and flexible ways as well. And so I just want to thank Tom for his leadership, and I'd like to introduce him now. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, John. Yeah, appreciate it. Sometime last year, I met with Chief Cordeiro to discuss the possibility of us participating in this program, as Mayor mentioned, the LEAD program. We had several meetings, discussed the issues and ramifications, and I came away satisfied that I think this was an appropriate program to become involved in. What I'm trying to do is bring a balance to the prosecution, as the mayor said. Locking everybody up and throwing away the key is not the answer in every case, in many cases. However, the balance is when you're dealing with lower level individuals committing lower level crimes, if there is some opportunity to deal with the issue, which is drug abuse, in this instance, outside of the court system, it could prove more beneficial in the end. The court system is asked to take on a lot of issues in society. It's not necessarily equipped to do that. First and foremost, you're prosecuting cases, trying to review them and make fair decisions in them, but with all the issues that come to the fore now, sometimes in many instances the court system, again, is not best equipped to deal with these issues. After speaking with the chief, he referred us to Seattle as a model where this had started, and also the city of Albany in New York, and I believe Albany came down, or they made a presentation several months ago at the Bedford Police Department. I had designated Chris Abreu from our office to oversee the program. So I think it's something that, as the mayor said, is part of trying to address the drug issue. It's pre-arrest diversion. The individuals are hopefully sent to treatment and will participate. It doesn't involve crimes of violence or crimes that are not appropriate to divert someone from, at least at the outset. Lower level, possession of controlled substances, disorderly conduct, trespassing, shoplifting, again, based on the situation. So I think the mayor, myself, and the chief are, on board in agreement to give this a shot. We hope that it's successful. Again, it brings a balance to the prosecution. Recently, a crime bill was passed, and I was happy to see that in some respects, some of the things I had lobbied for, which was fentanyl, which is killing a lot of people, which has caused the increase in the overdoses, is now an offense in which you can move to detain someone that's trafficking in fentanyl, and is also now has a minimum mandatory sentence. Because initially when the crime of trafficking was passed, there was no minimum mandatory. There's been a debate over that. You could move to detain somebody on a crime which everyone agrees has increased the fatal overdose level because of its potency. So again, a balance to the criminal justice system. Hopefully people can get diverted into the appropriate treatment programs and not have to come back into the system, and it can help to address and at the very least contain their addiction. So pleased to be part of this program, and hopefully it'll be successful. Now I'll turn it over to Chief Cordeiro to explain some of the program. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Mitchell for his continued support of the police department, myself, and allow us in supporting this initiative, which is a very important initiative for us. And I think I'm very optimistic on how it's going to turn out and helping a lot of our folks, including our police officers. And of course, District Attorney Tom Quinn, for his support and his partnership in this initiative, because without him, of course, that just wouldn't work, right? It's pre-arraignment, so we rely on him, and very glad that he's on our team and partnering with us, because without him, it just couldn't happen. Just to give you a little bit of background on how this all came to be, about 2 years ago when I took office with Deputy Chief Paul Oliveira, The deputy chief and Captain Resendiz and Connie from Seven Hills Mimosa went to San Diego on a conference. And what they came back with was LEAD. Said, this is a program that we definitely need here. So we started doing our research, and as both the mayor and the DA have both said, Seattle's had quite a bit of success, as has Albany. The idea behind LEAD is to give our police officers some additional tools beyond just the handcuffs. Most law enforcement officials will recognize readily today that we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. And not every person that is suffering from the disorder of addiction belongs in jail, and in essence is really a waste of taxpayers' money because we're not doing them any justice or our community any justice. And it's about harm reduction in our community. So how is this going to work? The nuts and bolts is this. We're going to be looking for our police officers to have the ability on the street when they encounter an individual who is suffering from this disorder, or has committed a misdemeanor crime, for example, like shoplifting, or has a mere possession of small amounts of heroin or fentanyl for personal use, or other small misdemeanor crimes. We'll then give them the opportunity. Give them the opportunity to either get arrested, go through the Brooklyn process, get arraigned, go through all that, get the charges put on their records, or enter into the LEAD program. If they decide to enter the LEAD program, we will then fill out a quick form. They'll agree to meet with a clinician from Seven Hills, a case manager, within 7 days. That case manager will assess that individual's needs, and those needs may not necessarily be initially their addiction. It may be their homelessness, it might be that they don't have the proper documents to get the insurance, or a variety of other issues, but they'll triage that and then start to work on their customized care issue by issue. We also recognize, or the LEAD program recognizes in their experience, that most folks will relapse. We don't throw them off the program if they relapse. We're going to stick with them and try to get them through all these varying challenges that they have, and eventually the goal is to get them into rehab where they can return to be a productive member of our society. I think this is a much more efficient and humane way of managing this very sizable population that is growing across the country. Instead of tying up our court system, the DA's, prosecutors, giving them a larger caseload in front of the judges, the probation officers, where they can now focus with a smaller caseload on much more serious crimes. So that is LEAD. We're excited, and I'm optimistic that it's going to have the impact that we want. I think, as the mayor said earlier, he's absolutely correct. There is no silver bullet. This is a team sport. There isn't one person. It's not a Lone Ranger approach that we're going to solve this problem. It's a problem that's going to be solved by our community with folks from all disciplines, walks of life, and their profession. That's going to make the difference. And this is just one little additional tool, a sizable tool in our arsenal, our toolbox, to make the change or bring the change and enhance the lives of those folks that are suffering and their family members. So again, I'd like to thank the mayor and DA Quinn, of course, Connie from Seven Hills and her organization for partnering with us, and Reverend Limo, who's been a very active participant in our multidisciplinary task force. Of course, Captain Resendiz, who will be leading our LEAD program initially until we get it fully up and running. Thank you.
All right. Questions? Go ahead, Tim.
So if there's one of these, if there's a user who may have taken it and decided to go to the program because of shoplifting, or someone who was caught in the act of prostitution, if the person commits the same crime again, I know you said the relapse, they're not going to get dropped. Say the person goes and shoplifts again, or someone's caught in the act of prostitution again, will they still be targeted?
If they're committing a separate crime, so they've been charged with shoplifting, program, relapse, out again, committed crime, I would say no on the surface, because that is, now we have a little bit of a bigger issue, because even though we're categorizing these as lower level crimes, some people who are stealing are causing a lot of problems to local merchants who are trying to make a living. So I don't have to be black and white, but you commit new crimes while already in the program and have already been diverted from one crime, the presumption would be no. I'm not saying it would never happen, because they've already been kept out of the criminal justice system for that one crime. But addiction is also an ongoing issue. As I've said in many cases, it depends when people talk about drug addiction, it depends what they're doing. When you're committing armed robberies and violent crimes, that is not a defense. Drug addiction or alcohol use, it never has been. Now, it can be part of an overall disposition. Again, armed robberies aren't part of it, but as I've said, I'm more sympathetic if people are not engaged in crimes that have more of an impact on people. But I would say generally, Chief, I know what your thought is, they're committing crimes. The second crime, I would say no. It doesn't mean their issue can't be addressed, but there has to be a limit to it. Plus, we're just starting the program out, so I think you want to have, be a little cautious at first.
What are the
Yeah.
numbers? Like, how many people are coming into the system every year in New Bedford who are registered as a low-level crime? And I guess how many are you hoping to?
Your district court stats, DA Quinn?
Well, I mean, it depends. When you say low-level crime, I
Or,
mean,
how many people would approximately fall into this category?
well, it would depend. I mean, as I said, we're just starting this out. There's a template, a memorandum of understanding, so this isn't necessarily, or it's not, how should I say it, a free pass to evade prosecution. But, I mean, there are a number of these cases that are committed. Not everybody is committing them that would be appropriate candidate for lead. At some point, records may be considered, but by and large, these particular crimes, people are not facing incarceration. Now, unless there's some type of terrible history with probation. We've purposely limited the crimes to this group so that it doesn't get too far afield right away. A lot of people are suffering from drug addiction. It's a tragedy, it's sad. But this has been going on in this city and around the country for a long time. This isn't something new. It's been exacerbated, I think, with the prescription pills, going back about a decade. When I started, not good at when I came back in the DA's office 11 years ago, it was rare to have any pill cases. You know what I mean by pills? Oxycodone, Percocet, at all, but in particular in Superior Court. I'd say about 2013, there were more Percocet, Oxycontin indictments. This is for trafficking than there were cocaine, which was the scourge. Now that seems to have abated somewhat on the charging process, when I talk about pill cases. But, I mean, there's a number of low-level offenses that are committed. I don't know if all those people fit into that category. There's a lot of motor vehicle offenses that are committed that these people would not be candidates for this program. So it remains to be seen. I think we'll take it on a case-by-case basis. The police have oversight of that. They're going to determine who is appropriate, and we're going to have oversight, as I said, with Attorney Abreu in Bedford District Court, and we'll take it one step at a time.
So I know you said it would be case by case, so the police will have the final arbitrate, the people would arbitrate and decide who can go for this program, who they can offer it to.
Yeah, well, the initial, and they're going to recommend somebody, and I think we'll go along with it, but we need to talk about it because we have to be on the same page about this. Again, this is designed for, I'm using the term, lower level offenders who are not public safety risks. So,
About like what percentage?
I don't know percentage. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't think you're going to find 500 people in this program in a couple of months. So the percentages are much lower than that. We'll develop some information as the program goes along, and maybe at a later date we could give you more, as to how many people have been in the program.
Yeah, just
Sure.
on your question, and I don't know if we can offer this definitively, Chief, but Albany, New York is almost exactly the same size as New Bedford, Massachusetts. So I don't know if we have numbers from Albany, and I don't know whether their opioid problem is more serious or less serious than ours, but that number, the Albany number, might shed some light on your question. How many people have been through your
You're
program?
absolutely right, Mayor. Albany is a very similar size to New Bedford. So not everyone that commits these crimes fits the criteria to go into lead, even despite it being the same crime, for example, shoplifting, right? First, you need someone that's willing to go, that wants to go into the program, right? So that's going to take some people right off the table. And then we have to have a ratio to caseworker. About 30 clients to caseworkers. So Albany's going to their second year of their program. I think they're running numbers about 80-some odd clients the last time I checked. So they may have rised. They have to put on another caseworker. They're looking to put on a third caseworker. So about a 30-to-1 ratio is about the limit because you got to work with them until they're all set. You really can't go on a percent. Your question was how many in the city, right, that go through district court. It's not really a good way of us looking at it. It's how many will fit the program that are in that situation, committing that low-level crime that fits lead, and then when the program can only grow up to a certain point without adding an additional caseworker. So we're looking right now to probably get up to about 30 and working with them, and it's more about getting a quality service to those 30 than it is about volume.
How do individuals who are on probation would get arrested by in Bedford or in the county, would they be eligible?
They'd be eligible for the LEAD program. It depends what the conditions of probation are. And the probation officer, they could still revoke their probation, as could the judge, right? So again, it's a case-by-case basis. What are they on probation for? There's so many variables, it's very hard to answer that as a black and white response.
I think my confusion is because obviously, it says it wouldn't go to, if they're in the program, it wouldn't go to any sort of trial, the courts wouldn't see that they're arrested. So would their probation in turn be affected at all?
Yeah, it could be because we're still required to notify their probation officer that they violated their conditions of probation, right? So that it's kind of a tricky question to give you a really concrete response. You know what I'm saying? So,
Chief, when you talk about not everyone fitting, you mean their probation record, their criminal history?
It's a combination of different variables, right? So you have some that's...
Those two?
Some of those variables you'd be looking at, right? But one of the biggest one is their willingness to want to go into the program, not just saying it to get out of an arrest. And to your other question is if they commit a repeat offense, this isn't a get out of jail free to commit future crimes. This is about what's in front of you right now. We'll give you a pass on this particular crime, divert you from going to court, get you into the program. The idea is, and this has happened in Seattle, the recidivism of committing additional crimes, they've had a very high success rate in lowering those numbers down. So once you're in a program, you're less likely to recommit another crime. Not saying you absolutely won't, but you're less likely. The probability is less and the success rate is higher.
Just one last question for you to clear something up. When it comes to regards to low-level prostitution, so would that be without, so if someone was caught in the act of prostitution, is that without some sort of ring going on? If they're involved in the ring, would they be eligible for it?
What do you, when you say by a ring, you mean like if we're doing a law enforcement sting?
No, I'm saying, I mean like as in, I'm going on the human trafficking side of things. Someone's being human trafficked.
Someone's doing human trafficking, they're outside of the threshold because that's a felony, right? We're talking about very low-level misdemeanors, shoplifting, prosecuting, maybe a mild larceny, low-level larceny, stuff like that. No crimes of violence.
Chief, one more for me.
No to that answer, human trafficking. No to that, human trafficking, clearly. So.
Chief, one more for me.
Sure.
What are they agreeing to when they go into the program?
What they're agreeing to initially is that they're going to meet, they're agreeing to enter the program, and they're going to meet with the caseworker within 7 days to have that case manager do an assessment of them and enter the program. That's the initial agreement. And then we go from there. And I can tell you, in speaking with Albany, they, in their 2 years, I don't think they've had to throw anybody off the program, ever. They sway, but they'll come back in, and they'll stay in the program. And one case that they give an example of, it's a really classical case. They had a gentleman that was once at a Home Depot and stealing tons and tons of product. It was a real nuisance. And they were able to get this individual assessed, and one of his biggest initial problems was he didn't have a home. They didn't even have documentations to get insurance, and then from there they built. He swayed off a couple of times, but he's not been a problem ever since. Now that's your big success story, but they have very similar success stories like that. But that's what they're committing to. 7-day assessment with a caseworker, entering the program, and staying in contact. And then we just keep working with them. And then the group will meet every other week, which consists of the caseworker, the DA's representative, a representative from the police department as our liaison, and our caseworker. They'll meet every other week and discuss all the current cases. For example, if they have a client that's entered the program and has gone amiss, can't find them, then with the help of the police officers in Seven Hills, their caseworkers, we'll try to relocate them get them back in the fold, because we recognize there is going
Once
to
a
be a
week?
relapse. Every other week they meet. The team meets every other week.
Any other questions?
All right,
Thank you.
very good. Thanks, everybody.
Excuse me. Do you want me to set that up with John?
Yeah.